Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. We have got a jam-packed episode for you today. First, we're going to cover the news of the week. We got an anti-Semitic tweet from poor persecuted freedom fighter Thomas Massie. We've got the latest on the COVID response from Frankfurt. We're going to cover a really pricey country ham. And then we're going to check in with Chris Hartman from the Kentucky Fairness Campaign about their efforts to make sure folks know what that ham actually stands for. Then we're going to be joined by Bill Londrigan, the president of Kentucky's AFL CIO. We got Labor Day right around the corner. We're excited to catch up with Bill about Labor's current agenda here in Kentucky and across the nation, and all before we wrap up with our action events calendar. But first, are you ready to help turn Kentucky purple? We know that our Commonwealth has some work to do if we're going to beat back the tide of bad policy out of Frankfurt, from shutting down open government rules to limiting school districts' ability to keep our kids safe. It's, we got a lot of work to do. If you want a Commonwealth that works for all of us, join Progress Kentucky. It's easy. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you spend time on social media. So make sure to like, share, and comment on our content. And if you like what you're hearing on Kernels of Truth, and really, why wouldn't you? Give us a thumbs up, leave us a review, or share out the show. But if you're looking to get more involved, you can hit up our volunteer link and send us your information so we can get your help for one of our organizing projects. Democracy is not a spectator sport, folks. We really need you out of the stands, onto the field, making the phone calls, knocking on doors, sending the postcards, just doing the work. But maybe you don't really want to make phone calls or hit the streets. I feel you. I hear you. You can still support our efforts with a financial investment. We got a goal of raising $1,500 for our current organizing project, and we're not there yet. So you could make a donation to via our Act Blue, secure Act Blue website. Anything you can do, 5, 10, 15, 20, 50, 500, 5,000, whatever you want to do. It's all super useful. We're going to put it to work. And of course, we're all volunteer, so nothing is going to overhead or salaries. So it goes right to the campaign. Let's get into the show, though. But first, let's check in with our co-hosts. And as we like to say, we are not a Talking Heads news show. We are a digital demonstration for a more compassionate Commonwealth. So what does your protest sign say today? Who are you? Where are you? What does your protest sign say today? I'm Aaron. I'm coming to you from Childsburg. And my protest sign says, infrastructure saves lives. So this, of course, is a reference to what's going on both in DC and then down in New Orleans. If folks know, spent a lot of time down in New Orleans. I love that city desperately. And we had Hurricane Ida, which roared through and gave a heck of a wallop to the great city of New Orleans and a lot of coastal communities around there. And it was a much different story than Hurricane Katrina. And the difference is $3.5 billion was spent between Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Ida, turning the levee system into an actual functioning levee system to protect those communities. And that's what infrastructure does, people. Another example of how infrastructure fails, though, is the fact that New Orleans is going to be without power for probably 3 weeks at least. All of their transmission lines into the city, all 8 transmission lines were crushed by the storm. A tower fell into the Mississippi River. And if we think back to Texas and the crazy ice devastation, the way the grid crumbled in that storm, electric grids need a lot of help and support. They need to be hardened for climate change. And right now, our lawmakers, mostly everyone that represents Kentucky in Washington, D.C., is lining up in opposition to an infrastructure bill and an expanded infrastructure bill. They're calling it socialism. Andy Barr and James Comey, they're competing to see who can say socialism the most in their current press releases and press statements about this infrastructure deal and infrastructure package. And I just want to underscore that, it's not socialism to want to have an electrical grid that is dependable and reliable. So at any rate, that is my soapbox / protest sign today. I'll now go to Kimberly. Kimberly, my co-host, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very, very well. And I'm Kimberly Cecil Jones, and I'm coming to you from Louisville, Kentucky, home of the Kentucky Derby. Everybody else in Kentucky, don't be jealous, but yes, the fastest 2 minutes in sports is right here in Louisville, Kentucky. So my sign today girls and guys. You know, I'm always trying to beat out the fellas. So I put mine on my shirt. How about that? They can't beat that. So this is to all the Republicans out there that feel like we don't need to wear masks, that feel like we don't need to be vaccinated. Let me just say this. The only BS I need is bags and shoes. That's right. That's the only BS I need is bags and shoes. That's my protest sign today, Aaron.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Kimberly. All right, Nate, how about you?
I'm not sure I can top that, but you know, I'll see what I can do. So, hey, folks, this is Nate Orshan broadcasting from Kit's and my home here in lovely South Frankfurt, just a stone's throw from our capital. And today, not on my shirt, but in my mind, I've got the sign that I had. It's not in my mind. It's actually right here written down, but I just lost it. Okay, let's try that again. In my mind, I have the sign, "Let's make politicians like Thomas Massie history by voting."
Fantastic. All right. I like it. Making history by voting. Let's do this. Let's check in with the news of the week because we've got a ton of stories we want to get through. We're going to get through them really quickly because we have these amazing guests queued up and waiting. Again, Chris Hartman from the Fairness Campaign and Bill Londrigan from the Kentucky AFL CIO. We're really honored to have both these gentlemen with us. But first, we got a few important stories that I think we need to go over with you. And the first one comes to us from Nate.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. So there's one school of thought that says you shouldn't publicize when someone is outrageous in public because it's only helping distribute their bad message. It's kind of like you got a small fire going on in the bushes and you think, oh, maybe I'll just let it keep burning and then the fire department will be able to find it really easily and then they'll put it out quickly. The problem with that approach, of course, is that while you're sitting there waiting for the fire trucks to show up, the fire keeps going and now setting the rest of the woods ablaze, and that's not what you wanted. So the opposing school of thought says that you should definitely publicize outrageous behavior, especially when it's coming from a would-be public servant, because the more people know what a jackass that person was, the more likely the person suffers some sort of consequence. So in this metaphor, you found the brush fire, but instead of letting it go, you stomp it down quickly once and for all. And guess which one we're doing tonight? So I'm working off of two recent Courier Journal stories here. The first one told about how last Wednesday, August 25th, Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky's 4th District had posted, then subsequently deleted, a tweet with an image containing the following caption, quote, "If you have to carry a card on you to gain access to a restaurant, venue, or event in your own country, that's no longer a free country." But that's not all. As you probably can see on your screen right now, assuming you're not listening on terrestrial radio, in which case you have to just imagine it in your mind. The photograph at the center of the caption was what should have been a horrific and chilling image to anybody with a shred of historical knowledge. An upraised fist showing a serial number tattooed on the inner forearm. In other words, it represents a prisoner in a Nazi concentration camp. Got that? So Representative Massie was, at least for a brief time last Wednesday, perfectly fine with comparing the possibility of government or private businesses requiring what's frequently called vaccine passports for doing fun stuff, comparing that with being a concentration camp. So in one fell swoop, Massie managed to both promote a ginormously tacky piece of false equivalence and also cheapened the exploitation and extermination of millions of Europeans, mostly Jews, by the Nazis and their collaborators. Trust me, I can go on and on about this, but I will leave it for my Kernels of Truth colleagues to share their thoughts in a minute. But first, let's flash forward a few days after that to Saturday, August 28th, when Representative Massie drove on down for a rally for anti-vax, anti-mask protesters at the Capitol right here in Frankfurt. But this time, he was not the one making the most outrageous comparison. No, 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 no. That dishonor went to our very own state auditor, Mark Hartman, who during his speech reached for his own special comparison for the potential of needing vaccine passports to get into public spaces. As reported in the Courier Journal, Auditor Hartman compared the potential use of these vaccine passports to how you once, quote, had to be a certain way to be able to sit and eat at the diner, unquote, i.e., how African Americans would be systematically discriminated against and persecuted during Jim Crow era segregation. Okay, so it takes a special kind of ignorance to try to make a potential measure that is intended to keep people safer by excluding people who choose, emphasis on the word choose, not to get vaccinated. And then compare that to the legal segregation that was intended to keep white people supreme, hence the phrase white supremacy, over black people for, physical attributes over which nobody has any control whatsoever. And again, I could go on and on about the thunderous dumbness of Auditor Mark Hartman, but I think my colleagues here may have a thing or two to say and add. Suffice it to say, hey, Kentucky, let's vote out of office these blazing forest fires of stupidity that keep coming out of Massey and Hartman's mouths.
Wow. Thanks, Nate. Yeah, that is just staggering, right? Like the idea that, yeah, I think you said it. You said it all. I mean, I'm just astounded that this is where we are, that this performative Republican, garbage is being shared loudly and proudly by statewide elected officials, by members of Congress. The idea that you could even, you came to your senses. Somebody said, yeah, maybe that's a bad look to compare, the Holocaust to not getting vaccinated. They pull down the tweet, which, but who the hell put it up there? And it's not the first one. They're comparing to Fauci to Jim Jones, or like just all this horrible, ridiculous garbage. And meanwhile, we've got our governor, Andy Bashir, is bringing in the National Guard to help with our overrun hospitals because what these people are saying is finding an audience, and they are not getting vaccinated, right? It's like we've got the answer right in front of us, and they're turning them off, utilizing it because to own the libs, I guess, getting intubated to own the libs, it's insane. I can't even. How are we going to protect our kids with these kind of all-time highs of infections and overrun hospitals? Kimberly, what do you got?
Well, the Kentucky GOP took away the tool of NTI, which stands for non-traditional instruction, of course, which is virtual instruction as we know it today. But at least 20 schools in various districts around Kentucky have already shut down due to COVID. I looked over the list and you see such places in counties such as Clay County, Berea, and so many various other ones. However, here in Jefferson County, JCPS, which is the Jefferson County Public School System, says that we really don't have a big COVID problem here in Louisville, which I beg to differ. However, knowing the governor that we have at this time, and of course, there's a lot of urgency right now to address this particular pandemic, and school districts need more tools. The most significant tool was removed by the Republicans in Kentucky during the last General Assembly. NTI, or as I said before, the non-traditional instruction, aka virtual learning. While virtual class is not nearly as engaging or valuable as in-person instruction, at a certain point, it just seems to click in what we possibly need right now. With COVID infections as high as they've been, MSNBC says that Kentucky is on an uptick, which means that we are constantly going up in numbers of infected individuals in Kentucky, which also I was alarmed to learn that over 50% of these, up to 70 something percent, are our children from 10 to 17 years of age being hospitalized, and half of those actually being admitted into ICU. So I ask you, what do you think we should do? Should we keep school open, or should we actually go ahead and shut it down and do virtual learning as we did before? So also in this particular trajectory of this and infected kids in the way that the Alpha variant did not. The original wild hype didn't seem to embrace the virtual learning as it does today. These 20 school districts are doing what they can to protect the children, teachers, and school district employees, but due to Kentucky's GOP always being short-sighted, anti-Andy, and last season, of course, they only have 10 days off for NTI, which a lot of times goes into if we have snow days and ice days and other emergencies that come along where children have to leave school for partial of the day or be off on a regular school day. So something needs to happen. And what is happening at this point with our great governor, Andy Beshear, and I say that with all passion and intent, that this is a great governor because he does care. He and Stivers are talking, and there's different committee meetings right now for a special session. But before Governor Beshear wants to do a special session, he wants to know that we already have something in place to take care of this. And also, in addition to that, taxpayers will have to pay $68,000 a day for special sessions. And normally you're running on an average of 5 days. That's the bare minimum of a special session. So also, not only do we just need the Republicans to jump on board and care about our children like our governor does, but also this stretch that we have to go is also causing taxpayers to pay more money. So right now, when we talk about COVID and schools, what is the right way to take care of this? Because it is hurting my heart. It's a pierce in my heart to continue to hear about these children. With the Alpha variant, it was about our senior citizens, our grandmothers and great grandfathers. But now it's our children, and our children is the future, not only of this state, but of this country. Back to you, Aaron.
Well, thanks, Kimberly. So yeah, we clearly, we're in a tough spot right now. Thankfully, the Kentucky Board of Education, that mask mandate for public schools, that's still in effect. I think there's some kind of wrangling that could happen legally. The GOP could, I think, sue over that. But it seems like right now it's in effect. I'm happy to see that, it seems like they're trying to find some solutions. Folks like Stivers have said some seemingly rational things about responding to COVID, but there are elements of that party that are just fully off the rails crazy, right? Like telling people not to get vaccinated, right? Telling people not to wear masks. So it'll be interesting to see in a special session, can the kind of more moderate wing of this Kentucky GOP keep folks constrained? Like, it is an open question. And I am not as as hopeful as I would like to be, because my kids are in school, right? And I want them to be safe. And I think they're going to play to a performative and very loud part of their base that's not the biggest part of it, right? And so the kids will pay the price if that's the case. I guess I'll be homeschooling my children if that's where we come down. But all right, we're going to get on to our last story before we get on our guests. Get to our guests, and this is one that grabbed headlines because somebody paid $4.8 million for a ham. All right, so this is part of the Kentucky State Fair. Every year there's a Farm Bureau sponsored ham auction, and apparently it's the cool thing to do if you're really rich, to spend a lot of money on this ham. You don't actually, you get the ham, the money doesn't go to the Farm Bureau, it goes to, I think, just nonprofits. So it has to be a charitable donation to go out and to support nonprofits in Kentucky. So it really is just showing off how much money you're able to give to charity. So this year, Kelly Craft split the donation, and this Kelly Craft, if you're not terribly familiar with her, she is seriously considering running for governor in 2023, and she and her husband are planning to donate the money to economic and community opportunities in Louisville's West End, as well as other parts of the state. which is certainly laudable. Like donations to community groups is always a good thing. There are folks who definitely need support. And then the other half of that donation is from Central Bank, and they're going to donate their half of the $4.8 million grand total to a mix of organizations, including University of Kentucky initiatives and Transylvania University, according to the Farm Bureau. And the Central Bank has done this before, betting big on the prized ham. It bought the ham for $1 million in 2019, and then Central Bank and Dr. Mark Lynn won in 2018, each putting $1.4 million towards this ham. So again, I don't really like ham that much, so I don't know why people are spending this kind of money on ham, but it is definitely a, hey, look at me, we're making a lot of donations to the community. Kelly Craft has definitely made donations in the past. Most of them have been political contributions, though, is what I'd like to point out. And that she actually reported that the Lexington Herald has reported that Craft had given more money to Democratic candidates at the state level between 2008 and 2019 than to Republican candidates. But apparently somewhere along that line, she became a big, huge Republican. And in January 2012, Craft donated around $500,000 to Restore Our Future, a super PAC supporting Mitt Romney. She and her husband hosted a private fundraiser for Donald Trump in 2016 at the Aviation Museum of Kentucky. The Alliance Coal PAC, which her husband runs, gave $60,000 to the National Republican Congressional Committee and $167,500, which I think is the cap, to Republicans, including $10,000 to our own Andy Barr. So these folks are big wheelers and dealers in Republican politics, although maybe not a long-term commitment to the Republicans. She's kind of going where the political winds blew. And then she was actually appointed by Trump to be the U.S. ambassador to Canada. She served 2017 to 2019 after making lots of contributions. And then, she did a laudable job because we did not go to war with Canada under her tutelage there and under her leadership. But she was appointed and confirmed as the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations from 2019 to 2021. So really an interesting character, apparently showing off her commitment to our community and, maybe drawing some attention away from her political contributions. And the thing that I was most interested in, though, in this ostentatious donation, what's the entity that she's engaging with, right? So tell us more about this Kentucky Farm Bureau, right? So this is a big thing that gets a lot of attention every year. And a lot of people just, it's folks who advocate for farmers. That's a good thing. There's not as much awareness about the kind of full breadth of the Kentucky Farm Bureau's advocacy and their agenda. So I wanted to reach out to somebody who's put a lot of time and energy into watchdogging the Farm Bureau and trying to elevate what they're up to. So very excited to bring to the show right now our guest, Chris Hartman of the Kentucky Fairness Campaign. Chris, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, Aaron. I'm excited to be here.
So tell us about this. So what are you doing? Why you got to fight with the Farm Bureau? Who doesn't like farmers? Why are you picking fights with farmers, Chris?
Yeah, why do we have a beef with the Kentucky Farm Bureau? Sometimes it is tough for me to think back and remember 11 years ago why and when we started protesting the Kentucky Farm Bureau. And we do choose the country ham breakfast at the Kentucky State Fair to protest the Kentucky Farm Bureau and to sort of raise awareness of the discriminatory policies that this company has. People think that this is just an insurance company that insures about 500,000 Kentucky families, and they are. However, if you have Kentucky Farm Bureau insurance, you pay a membership fee to be a part of their 501c4 lobbying arm, the Kentucky Farm Bureau Federation. And the Kentucky Farm Bureau Federation does not send its policy booklet to Kentucky Farm Bureau insurance holders, even though they're paying into these discriminatory policies. And the policy book that they send out, starts off on page 9 with discriminatory views by saying that they believe that marriage is still between one man and one woman. And it continues on for the next 100 pages to have policies that are anti-union, anti-teacher, anti-folks of color, anti-immigration, pro-death penalty. Why does an insurance company have all of these conservative, politically polarizing positions that their lobbyists, they spend nearly $100,000 every year in the Kentucky General Assembly. And I don't know what they're paying to lobby Congress and lobby Washington, D.C. But the reason we started protesting them was because they fired a full-time employee, videographer, about 15 years ago. His name was Todd Eckloff, and he was a Unitarian Universalist minister on his free time. And he came out in support of gay marriage. And shortly thereafter, Kentucky Farm Bureau fired him. And they more or less told him they were firing him because of his views, his public views in support of LGBTQ marriage. And that's when Reverend Todd Eckloff came to the Fairness Campaign and brought that little policy book that you can download yourself at fairness.org/KFB for Kentucky Farm Bureau, fairness.org/KFB. And we saw all of these policies that we just couldn't believe. And we just wanted to make certain that Kentuckians, and specifically Kentucky Farm Bureau insurance customers, know what they are buying into when they buy into the Kentucky Farm Bureau.
That is, yeah, that's impressive. Good work on elevating those issues. What kind of response have you gotten from the Farm Bureau? Have they rolled back their discriminatory policies yet, or how are they responding?
Well, naturally, no, they haven't. And of course, they've been adding to them through the year. I thought that maybe they would start moving in the opposite direction. But look, I just had handy with me. This is the actual policy book. You see the tiny font that's in there. But no, they've been going in the wrong direction. They added some anti-transgender policies a couple of years ago. I have talked to the Kentucky Farm Bureau in the past, back before we really started protesting them. I called them to talk with them about the policies, ask them if they were going to change them, ask them how they get changed. Mayor Greg Fisher here in Louisville actually brought Farm Bureau President Mark Haney, and at the time, I believe, Vice President David Beck, who interestingly is the head of the Fair Board now at the Kentucky Fairgrounds and is over the Kentucky State Fair. But Mayor Fisher brought all of us together maybe 5 years ago to see if he could be a mediator or negotiator. And of course, the Kentucky Farm Bureau said that they're not changing the policies, that their members vote on the policies. And this is true to a degree. They have an annual meeting every December. Typically, it's at the Galt House in Louisville. I believe that the only voting members are folks whose majority income comes from farming and they have Farm Bureau insurance. So if you just have an auto policy or a home policy, you are paying into the discriminatory policies, but you don't actually have a vote on whether or not the Kentucky Farm Bureau has those policies. So they vote at the annual meeting. I think it's really just sort of something that's bundled into several days that feels like a conference. So people probably aren't paying much attention to it and aren't putting much thought into it. But if they really read this book, I think the vast majority of them would be shocked. And these are not the values that Kentuckians share. These are not the values that the vast majority of Kentucky Farm Bureau insurance holders share. And we have heard through the past decade of protesting them, innumerable people who have dropped their Kentucky Farm Bureau insurance policies when they learned of the discriminatory policies that they were buying into. And it's a shame, because most Kentucky Farm Bureau insurance policy representatives also don't agree with these policies. Most of them didn't even know they existed. But again, they printed them, they put them in black and white every year. They send this book to elected officials, to people running for office, but they don't send it to their own customers who are paying for it.
Wow, that is something. Chris, thank you so much. If there's anything that, kind of our viewers should or could do, where would you suggest they go to find out more and to help out the campaign?
Yeah, again, just be aware of the policies, download them and share them at fairness.org/KFB, and then join the Fairness Campaign as we advocate for LGBTQ rights all across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. We've got 23 communities now that have passed fairness ordinances that ban LGBTQ discrimination. We want to see that statewide one day. You can take action right now at fairness.org/reps.
Yep. So there you go. If you want to find out more and to add your voice to that campaign, please do check out that website. Chris, thank you so much for coming on from the Campaigns Corner. We're excited to hear about this great work, and I'd like to have you back in the future. We're going to have a little bit more time to have a conversation about the kind of breadth of your organization's work, because I know it's very significant and very important for our Commonwealth. But thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, friends.
Sure thing. All right. So we're going to move on now. Really excited to bring on our next guest, Bill Londrigan, who is with the Kentucky AFL CIO. As we are staring our long weekend in the face, it makes a heck of a lot of sense to bring on the folks who brought us the long weekend. And hear from them and about what they're working on. Bill's, a longtime friend of this show. He was on back when we were Moscow Mitch Monday, I believe. And now that we've made the transition to Kernels of Truth, wanted to check in with Bill. Bill, welcome, and thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, great to be here, Aaron. So nice to be here with your associates, as well as with my good friend Chris Hartman. And great to see Chris, who works with us all the time in Frankfurt on issues ranging from minimum wage, workers' rights, LGBTQ issues that we are in line with, and appreciate his efforts. And I think he mentioned the Farm Bureau, and the fact is, it's almost like one of these deals where you really can't opt out of that policy, can you, Chris? You got if you sign up to be a policy holder, you're stuck with this BS that they've hidden into your policy, and you're supporting this 501c3 that lobbies in Frankfurt to turn back the clock on working families and on regular folks that need the rights that protect it. So I'm glad to be here, and we've got a lot of stuff going on here with Labor Day coming up. COVID right now, naturally we've had Labor Day celebrations and events all around the Commonwealth. On a usual year. We will have a big event at Kentucky Kingdom here with the Greater Louisville United Labor Day picnic organization that'll be sponsoring that effort on Labor Day. Unfortunately, some of our events have been canceled due to COVID, but we are having some virtual events. One of the biggest events in the country, the Cincinnati Labor Day event, has been canceled as well. And it's really sad because of the impact that COVID is really having on our ability to bring people together. Yeah. Regardless of that, we're out here beating on it every day and making sure that we're communicating with folks, whether it be virtually or in person during rallies and such, where we've been able to socially distance and wear masks and try to protect the people that we're, supporting and working with. So very difficult times that we're in, but we're not going to give up, and we're going to make sure that people understand how important Labor Day is, the one holiday of the entire year where the work of our so-called essential workers is being recognized for what they do every day to make this country and this Commonwealth work. And that's really what it's all about. Our folks, our members, working families across this Commonwealth, they make the difference. They, make everything run, whether it's transportation industry, whether it's auto workers, steel workers, iron workers, construction workers, nurses, healthcare workers. They're out there every day under these very difficult circumstances, making sure that they get the job done for their fellow citizens. And that's what we're all about.
Absolutely. Bill, I know you got some. You guys have a long, proud history of doing this work. I'm glad to hear how you're adapting, to these kind of crazy times that we're in right now and living through. You guys have definitely had some other changes you've had to deal with. I wanted to offer condolences on the sudden passing of the longtime AFL leader Richard Trumka. I know he came from the coal field, so I'd imagine there was some kind of increased solidarity with Kentucky's labor movement. Any reflections on Mr. Trumka that you'd like to share?
Sure, absolutely. Rich Trumka, the president of the National AFL CIO, were friends with myself, as well as all of the working people of Kentucky. He was here on numerous occasions. We marched in Frankfurt together, rallied together, put efforts for political campaigns here over and over again. When we asked for help from President Richard Trumka for Kentucky, we always got it. We certainly miss him. I miss him personally. I think he was a great leader, and he did a lot of great things. And we changed the labor movement with John Sweeney, who also passed away not too long ago, several months ago, prior to President Trumka's passing. And both those gentlemen and Union brothers really tried to change the tenor and tone of the labor movement immigrant rights, racial justice, economic justice issues have come to our forefront. And, our working families are glad to support the efforts that have been put forth. And we're going to carry on Rich Trumka's legacy here. And as you know, the Secretary Treasurer, Liz Schuler, has moved up, the first woman to be president of the National AFL CIO in our entire history. And I think Liz will pick up the mantle and do a great job. And already she stepped in and has been very, aggressive in her efforts to, spread the word and communicate with the workers of America how important the union movement is to them and their families. So definitely going to miss Brother Rich Trumka, and as well as his predecessor, John Sweeney, who also came to Kentucky on a lot of occasions to rally, march, and support us in our work for justice for workers.
Yep. And then you've also had another kind of historic addition to the leadership of the AFL. Isn't that correct? Fred Redmond, who was first African-American in the position of Secretary Treasurer, coming to you guys from the United Steelworkers. So definitely you guys are reflecting, a diversity that is, I think, reflective of the workplace, right? Like we
have really been, working on it. Several years ago at one of our conventions, our resolution to increase diversity among our ranks, both in leadership and across the board, has really bore fruit. Across the South, our president in North Carolina is a woman. We have several other women leaders in Virginia. So we're trying to diversify the labor movement so that it reflects the workers that we represent. And as you know, half the labor movement is made up of women workers too. So we want to certainly make sure that they, have their voices down the line and make sure all of our constituents that work every day for a living, that are union members and their families, have that voice on the job that we help to provide through collective bargaining and organizing.
Wonderful. And I know you guys have a very significant focus right now. I can read it on your backdrop that the PRO Act is something you guys want to get done. Tell us a little bit about the PRO Act, kind of where does it sit right now, and how do we get it past Mitch McConnell?
Well, protecting the right to organize. As you all know, we passed the National Labor Relations Act way back in 1935, which supposedly give the rights of workers to organize and bargain collectively and join unions of their own choosing, which was a successful effort for many, many years. And of course, the union movement grew. Workers were able to have a fair opportunity to organize. But then again, back in the 1970s, the tide started to change and corporations took a much more aggressive stance against unions, and that's been happening every day since then, as you all know. I recently wrote an editorial that was published in the Lexington Herald, and, we tried to evaluate where we are as workers in our ability to organize. And one of the comments that I made there was, okay, see, if you think it's fair right now under the current regime to organize a union at your workplace, go into your office or your workplace tomorrow morning and tell your boss you want to join or start a union and see what happens. You'll either get surveilled, interrogated, isolated, or fired for that effort. In fact, when we look at the statistics, tens of thousands of workers are fired, over the last few years for trying to organize a union at their workplace, whether they be Black, white, Latino, it doesn't make no difference. Once an employer, decides that they're going to fight a union, they'll take every opportunity to discriminate and to illegally harass workers and try to, stop them from their exercising their Section 7 rights under the National Labor Relations Act. And, it's come to pass that the act has not been able to stop this onslaught of anti-unionism. And employers in America routinely violate the rights of workers every day. And when we talked about the PRO Act will prohibit union employers from engaging in anti-union activity at the workplace so that workers actually have a fair opportunity to decide whether or not they want to have a union at their workplace and to whether or not they can exercise their democratic rights to majority vote of a union in their workplace to collectively bargain for their rights of fair wages and benefits. So the PRO Act would eliminate a lot of the obstacles that are being put in the way of workers in their quest to organize. And when we look at polling around the country, millions upon millions of workers would vote for a union tomorrow if they had the fair right to do so. And that's why we need to pass the PRO Act. And when we talk about the PRO Act, we talk about increasing the amount of members in the union movement that have collective bargaining rights, lifting up workers, lifting up their ability to provide for their families, to improve their communities. That's what the union movement has been about and has always been about. And that's why we want to improve that through the PRO Act. And of course, we have our opponents there like Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, who continuously introduces a national right to work bill. So we have a difficult process, and they can use the filibuster to thwart our efforts here. So that's another reason for us to get rid of the filibuster and allow us to have a fair up and down vote with majority in the U.S. Senate. The House, of course, has already passed it by a significant majority. And we need to have this law passed because workers don't have the fair opportunity to utilize their rights to organize and bargain collectively under the current regime. Employers routinely violate the law, and when they get found to have done so, the penalties are minimal. A lot of times it's post a notice in the workplace that they won't do it again. And the fines are absolutely minimal. So they've incorporated this into their business model that they can absorb, some of these fines as long as they don't have to deal with the union that the workers want, and they don't have to bargain collectively. So that's where we're at with the PRO Act, and we're continuing to push on that. And we think this would be a transformative piece of legislation, like several of the other pieces of legislation that the Biden administration has put forth for infrastructure, for the jobs plan, the American Families Plan. These are wonderful pieces of legislation. The PRO Act fits right in there. It's almost like, we'll say, a triple crown, the PRO Act, the American Families Act, the jobs plan, infrastructure. We can have all these bills that will transform the United States. Be much more proud of in terms of our ability to compete with all these other nations that are passing us by economically. So we want to lift up workers. We want to give them the rights that they deserve. We want to have a great country, and that's what the PRO Act is all about.
That's wonderful. And yeah, I'm very much hopeful that, we'll see some movement. Obviously, Mitch McConnell, despite being demoted, still wields an incredible amount of influence there because that adherence to the antiquated filibuster, the Jim Crow 2.0 approach that we've got right now is really problematic. And I think it's the PRO Act is certainly one example of something that would benefit from the filibuster being jettisoned. Obviously, the For the People Act as well, like protecting our voting rights. There's a lot of things, important things are on the line. And I concur with you, Bill, that there's an amazing array of fantastic leadership we've seen from Joe Biden, but that adherence to the filibuster and that respect of the filibuster is really a problem, right? And we've got to get over, and I don't know how to do it. I mean, don't you guys have good ins with Manchin, right? Isn't he like coal unions?
Well, Manchin is actually signed on to the PRO Act. So,
right, but we can't get the PRO Act unless we get rid of the filibuster, right? We got to.
Exactly. It's been an ongoing and constant problem for us to overcome this roadblock that's put in our place with the filibuster. And this is not the first time this has happened. But I think more is on the line now. Really, the ability of Americans to have a decent standard of living and have good wages and have good benefits and have health care and retirement and everything that is so important for workers and their families is really on the line now. And, the power elite, the wealthy billionaires are pushing back as hard as they can. Every opportunity that they get to tamp down unionism, whether it be at Amazon, whether it be at Volkswagen, whether it be at any of these large corporations. But I will say on the positive side here, there are workers out here organizing all over the United States, whether it be in different bargaining units in terms of journalism and in public sector. I mean, we have organizing going on all over the place. We have a Fight for 15 campaign that's going on, fighting McDonald's and these other large food service corporations. There's a lot going on across this country that is extremely positive for workers, that there's a lot of folks that are really fed up and they're actually, taking on the mantle of positive action through trade unionism. And, you don't see that necessarily through all the, corporate media. But, if you look closely, you can see that there are workers out here that are fed up all over the United States. You look around New York Times, Vox, all these different entities that are out here. There are workers organizing left and right. So we don't want to give workers the impression that they can't organize. We've given the impression that it's difficult to organize. But if they stick together and they work together and they are really committed to their cause, they can be successful. And it happens all the time. The unfortunate reality is that employers have the upper hand. But when workers come together, join together, they can win. And it's happened over and over again. And we have fights going on all over this country right now, whether it be the mine workers at Warrior Met in Alabama, whether it be the Nabisco workers in many states across the country that make these cookies, Oreos, and things like that, who are on strike right now. And these guys are coming together and gals are coming together for the good of each other.
It's impressive. Absolutely impressive. So what you're saying, though, is I should not bring any Oreos to my Labor Day picnic. Is that what you're telling me, Bill?
Yes. And I got to stop my daughter from buying Oreos as well. So
it's hard. They're addictive. They make a good cookie.
That's called union solidarity. And we try to practice that and that's what makes the world go around as far as the workers of this country are concerned. We just want to send a message to workers in the United States, that if they stand together, they work together, they struggle together, they can be successful together. And we can take this country back for the working families of America, despite the odds that we're up against right now.
Hey, I want to lift up one thing, because as you know, like this is an organization that really wants to see elections and people engaged around the elections. The biggest election we've got coming up in 400 whatever days. Rand Paul is going to be up for re-election, even though he said he was only going to run for 2 terms. Apparently he forgot that and is now running for re-election. You mentioned his name. You said that he sponsors a national right to work law. Now, right to work sounds to work. Everyone should have a right to work, right? What is the problem with what Rand Paul wants to do?
Well, of course, we all know right to work is just a euphemism for trying to bust the union. It's a divisive tactic, Right to work requires unions to service and support workers that refuse to pay a fair share fee to the union for the services that they render. Really, what it does is undermine our ability to democratically practice our collective bargaining rights. When we have a contract before a corporation or a company or an employer, those contracts are voted on by the members of the union, and the majority rules. It's a democratic process. So if the majority says, hey, we're going to ask all the workers in this bargaining unit to pay a fair share so that we can maintain our union, have collective bargaining, have a grievance procedure, and pay for the things that are necessary to protect your rights, then we expect everybody to pay a fair share. So that's all there is to it. And what this does is basically undermine unity in the bargaining unit. And that's the whole purpose. Unions are based on unity. That's why we call them unions. And when you have workers that are, getting a free ride, that breaks down unity and solidarity at the workplace. And that's one of the, whole goals of these right to work laws. So, it's really just an undermining of our democratic rights to have a contract that employers also sign on to. So, there's so much more to it, and when you say, right to work, well, basically what that means is you have a right to work in a union shop without paying a fee or any dues to a union while still getting the benefits. That's basically what it means.
It's a right to undermine a union. That's what you get. You get in the right
exactly. To work state. And again, it's a buzz phrase. So, hell, we'll be a right to work state. So all these big business will come here because they won't have to deal with these pesky unions. That's the message that they try to portray through right to work. And of course, that obviously is a real negative approach to labor management relations. And years ago, we had this notion that workers had the right to collectively bargain, that employers had the duty and responsibility to collectively bargain and respect the rights of workers at the workplace to organize and join and support unions of their choosing. And that whole thing is, basically gone out the window. They've taken on this approach that, we're never going to deal with a union in most of these workplaces, and we're going to fight them tooth and nail and do whatever we can to thwart their efforts, whether legal or illegal. And it's really a sad state of affairs because it doesn't help the workers of the country, and it doesn't help the economy of the country. It doesn't help anything. It just basically undermines workers' ability to have a fair standard of living and the ability to buy all these great goods that these big corporations are making. And that's where we got this great disconnect. If workers had more money in their pockets, if they had more economic viability, they could consume more of these goods that these corporations are producing. So it's almost like, a ridiculous construct that they put together here. Workers in this country and this whole nation would be far better off if more and more workers were in unions and had that opportunity to bargain collectively and raise their wages, their standard of living, have better healthcare benefits and retirement benefits and education and everything that goes along with it. Obviously, what we have right now is the control of our economy by a very, very small few individuals who control massive amounts of wealth, and our income inequality has, increased to the point where it's historic in its levels of disparity. And the only thing that brings that level of disparity down and decreases income inequality are unions and the ability to bargain collectively with employers.
100%. Thank you, Bill. That is a fantastic kind of summation of why we need to be in solidarity with, our union friends and work together to advance these legislative agendas. Kimberly or Nate, any final questions for Bill?
I do. I have a question. I just thought that you explained about the PRO Act and exactly what it is and what we needed to do. However, I must say that my heart has gone down to my toes knowing that now I cannot buy the double stuffed Oreo. I just have to tell you. So do we know when maybe something may happen good that we could go back to Oreos? Snickers is not in there, is it? I just want to know my comfort foods.
No, and in fact, a lot of these struggles, last a significant amount of time, sometimes years. So, but batten down the hatches, find an alternative, and hope for the best. Having solidarity with workers and making sure that they're not being exploited, I think is more important than us having some cookies and milk. So I appreciate your feelings and share them as well. But I do say, we're not going to have any Oreos in our house until the strike and the collective bargaining agreement is settled. And, you got to understand there's actually some, international implications to this as well, since the employer is Mondelez, which is a Mexican-owned corporation, which also has facilities in Mexico that produce Oreos. So, there's Oreos coming in from Mexico, and then we've got the ones that are made in the United States that are on strike. And in fact, I saw a recent video of some of our fellow workers in a foreign country standing in solidarity with the American workers at the company. So, there's international global solidarity around this particular strike. That's just one example. There are others.
Solidarity requires sacrifice, Kimberly. Every once in a while, from time to time, you got to, the greater good requires you to buy Hydrox, apparently. I don't know.
Well, I'm just going to say this, that, this is a blessing in disguise for me, not trying to be so selfish or anything, but Oreos is the reason why I have pandemic weight. So, this is going to be a good thing all the way around. I just want to say that, Mr. Lundgren, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thanks again for coming on, Bill. We appreciate your support, appreciate your engagement, your leadership, and looking forward to continuing to collaborate wherever possible and practical. So, thank you.
Appreciate you guys.
Awesome. And now we're going to move to our action events calendar, which Kimberly will be bringing to us.
Yes, our action events calendar. Progress Kentucky has joined the Kentucky Voting Rights Coalition, a loose organization that's committed to ensuring that previously incarcerated people reclaim their right to vote. And we need more citizens across our Commonwealth registered and voting in every election. They have some events coming up to put those goals into action, and you can find out more about their efforts online. So there's going to be a voter registration table at Kroger in Louisville on September the 2nd, which is tomorrow at 5:30. You can get more information on that at mobilize.us/KFTC/events. Phone banking for voting rights, which is online on September the 9th from 6 to 8:30 p.m. You can find out more about that at mobilize.us/KFTC/event. Spokesperson Training Webinar for people with felonies in their past is September the 14th, which is 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. at the same web address. The Soul of Second Street Festival, which is going to be September the 17th and 18th in Danville, voter registration table and petitions. Door to door for voting rights in Lexington, which is September the 25th. You can get more information at mobilize.us/KFTC/event. PAR, which is People Advocating Recovery Annual Rally. Recovery Rally actually is on September the 25th at 615 South 3rd Street here in Louisville, Kentucky. And you can find out more information about that at parrally.org. That's PARRALLY.org. Let's do this. Let's Do This is a campaign to get the city of Lexington and surrounding communities vaccinated. If you want to join other community members for a neighborhood canvass, more information can be found at letsdothis.nationbuilder.com. We'd like to give a special shout out and thank you to Mr. Chris Hartman of the Fairness Campaign and Mr. Bill Londrigan of the AFL CIO. Which is telling us that to do our part to support the unions, not only are we supporting the PRO Act, we are also supporting not eating Oreos, okay? Do not eat them. I'm going to know if you eat them. I promise I will. So just want to let you know next week on Kernels of Truth, we have a great show now. Reggie Thomas. He is the Minority Caucus Chair for the Democrats in Frankfort, and we'll be discussing redistricting and how the Democrats can help keep our state safe from COVID, despite the extreme minority numbers of vaccinations. Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State, organized as a 501c4, is affiliated with the Indivisible Project and the Commonwealth Alliance Voter Engagement, otherwise known as CAVE. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. More information can be found at progresskentucky.org about how to volunteer and support ongoing efforts. Production services and media content are provided by Couchfire Media. Couchfire Media ignites multi-camera, live stream, fiction narrative, nonfiction, educational, informative animation, and commercial video production content. For more information about Couchfire Media, you can find them at www.couchfiremedia.com. And also, it is the home of our producer, Mr. Ken Howe. All the great things that you see right here on Kernels of Truth could not be possible if it were not for Couchfire Media and Mr. Ken Howe. The Jones Report is restructuring at this time, but you can still catch us every Tuesday at 7 p.m. weekly for national, local, and talk and conversation that occurs. So we are hosted, my co-hosts are Mike Breuer and Betsy Foster, and the host, of course, is myself, Kimberly Cecil Jones. You can find more information about us right here on Facebook at the Jones Report radio program. The song that you hear that is so absolutely fabuloso, or should I just say fabulous, comes from our own Mr. Nate Orshan, who was a co-host tonight here on Kernels of Truth. You can listen to more of his music. I suggest that you do. And also, I'll be sending him an email because he promised that we're going to be doing a song together. So you can reach him also at natosongs.com. That's NATO songs.com. This is WLXU 93.9 LP-FM Radio Lex Lexington, the voice of the people. The views expressed on Progress Kentucky's Kernels of Truth and our guests are not necessarily the views of Radio Lex or its board of directors. The views expressed on Progress Kentucky's Kernels of Truth are our own. If you miss our weekly show on Radio Lex, don't worry. Live video cast, content, and source links can be found on Facebook and YouTube. Also, you can always listen to us. Audio podcasts are available always on Apple, Spotify, Google, and others by searching Progress Kentucky. Links to all of our media platforms can be found always on our website at progresskentucky.org. Just thank you tonight to the best host ever. Well, running neck and neck with me, Mr. Aaron Viles, always to Nate Orshan, Ken Howe, and our great guest that we had tonight, once again, Mr. Chris Hartman of the Fairness Campaign, and Mr. Bill Lundgren with the AFL CIO. And I just want to tell everybody, as you go through this week, you know what I'm going to say. You can put it in the comments before I even say it. But you know what? Do something nice for somebody this week. It doesn't cost you any money to smile at someone. It doesn't cost you any money to open the door for someone. It doesn't cost you any money to socially distance yourself and wear a mask. It doesn't cost you any money. So you know what? Think about somebody else this week. Don't be like a Republican, okay? Think about someone else this week. And until then, we'll see you on the same bat channel, 7 p.m. next Wednesday. Have a good week, everyone. Bye-bye.